Matthew, and all the people were amazed. And said, "Is not this the son of David?" And the people wondered. The people is both wondered. Should I go before amazed? Wondered. And all the people were amazed now and wondered. This "and" will be from Luke and wondered. And said, "Is not this the son of David?" Maybe I should flip that around. And all the people wondered and were amazed. Now, being amazed, being shocked comes first. Then you start to think about what happens, searching for an explanation. So they're amazed first, then they're wondering, they're searching for an explanation, and then the explanation is given. Is not this the son of David? I like this order. We're amazed and wondered. If I could put saying and wondered saying instead of "and said," that would be best. But that's only Matthew. We're amazed and said, "Is not this the son of David?" Mark, I don't think there's anything I can do with Mark. No, it's all said. Alright, I'll just leave it. Then, right before I go into the Pharisees' reaction, I'll go into his friend's reaction, which is back in Mark. Mark 3:21. When his friends heard of it, they went out to lay hold on him when they said, "He is beside himself." Now I can combine the reaction from Matthew and Mark of the Pharisees, or the scribes, coming down and accusing him. So Mark says, "And the scribes which came down from Jerusalem said, He has Beelzebub, and by the prince of devils cast he out devils." So the first line is, "And the scribes which came down from Jerusalem." Matthew, "But when the Pharisees heard it," maybe I could say the scribes and Pharisees which came down from Jerusalem heard it, they said, "This fellow does not cast out devils. He has Beelzebub." Okay, so that first line I have to work on. "And the scribes which came down from Jerusalem said," but when the Pharisees heard it. Okay, so I'm going to say, "but when," and then I'll put the Pharisees, and then from Mark, "and the scribes." So, "but when" from Matthew. The Pharisees. You know, actually, I'm pretty sure throughout all the rest of the times these two groups of people are mentioned, it always is written as the scribes and the Pharisees. So I'm going to keep it like that. That means I'd have to switch around the word and the word scribes. Yeah, I'll put it that way, the scribes and the Pharisees. But when the scribes and I'll just say in the addresses, the word "and" does actually come before the scribes, but I'm just putting it the way it's always mentioned elsewhere. But when the scribes and the Pharisees, now back to Mark, says where they're coming from, which came down from Jerusalem, now back to Matthew, heard it, continues with "they said." Mark has just said. So I'll put "they" from Matthew and then "said" from both. They said. Matthew continues, "This fellow does not cast out devils, but by Beelzebub." Mark it says, he has Beelzebub, and by the prince of the devils casts he out devils. So this fellow or he? I think this fellow is better. Although fellow is actually in italics, so it's not really there. It's just an entry by the translators. I'm going to stick with this fellow, because it goes on in Mark to then say, by the prince of devils casts he out devils. So it already has this he. And after that it goes on, Jesus responds. It doesn't even have Jesus' name still. It just says, he called to them and said to them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? In Matthew it does mention Jesus. Okay, that's good. I think I want to include the explanation in Matthew, which says, by Beelzebub, the prince of devils, is how he casts out devils. Because that clearly links Beelzebub with the prince of devils, saying they're the same. Mark just says he has Beelzebub, and by the prince of devils he casts out devils, not linking the two. I want to have them linked, as it says in Matthew, but I still want to have this accusation saying he has Beelzebub, not just saying by Beelzebub he casts out devils, because they're not just saying he's using demonic power. They're saying he is possessed himself. He has Beelzebub. I'm going to have to mention the name of Beelzebub twice. He has Beelzebub, and by Beelzebub, the prince of devils, he casts out devils. That's how it's going to have to go. I'll start out with, he has Beelzebub. And then I'll go into the rest of it as combined between Matthew and Mark. So this is just Mark. He has Beelzebub. And by... In Matthew it has it backwards. He does not cast out devils, but by Beelzebub, the prince of devils. So saying he's not doing it except for with the power of Satan, or Beelzebub. I'll go back after that to Mark. Casts he out devils. So I'll now say, and from Mark still, by is both. By Beelzebub, and by the prince of devils. So I'm going to insert here after by from Mark what it says in Matthew, the name again, so that now it's clearly saying Beelzebub is the prince of devils. Because I don't want to cut that out from Matthew, because that's part of this chain that explains another name for Satan is Beelzebub. Later on, Beelzebub is mentioned, and then just Baal is mentioned. And it's explained how they worship Baal by letting their sons and daughters pass through the fire, which is exactly how they worship and sacrifice to Molech, which shows that Baal and Molech are pretty much the same. You worship them the same way. Let your sons pass through the fire. So Molech is just like Baal, is just like Beelzebub, is just like Beelzebub. All of these different gods, the way that you worship them, eventually all that worship is just going right to Satan. You're either worshiping God or you're worshiping Satan. There are not hundreds of different options. There's God, and then all the different fake options that Satan presents to you to make you think that you have so many religions to choose from. And worshiping God is just one of them. Worshiping Jehovah is just one of the options. It's not. It's God, Jehovah, or it's Satan in one of his thousands or millions of different fake idolatry forms. So, by now, Matthew only, Beelzebub. Now the prince of the devils. The prince of the devils is in both. Casts he out devils. Mark casts he out devils. So now it reads like this. And all the people were amazed and said, Is not this the son of David? And when his friends heard of it, they went out to lay hold on him, for they said, He is beside himself. But when the scribes and the Pharisees, which came down from Jerusalem, heard it, they said, he has Beelzebub, and by Beelzebub, the prince of the devils, casts he out devils. That fits very well. So, is there anything else from Luke I can add? Yes. We're talking about Beelzebub. Some of them said he casts out devils through Beelzebub. But some of them, okay, so this but is both Matthew and Luke. Some of them said. They said. So this said is now all three. He casts out devils. So he is in Luke. It's out of order. Luke is written, he casts out devils. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to switch this he to here. So now it's Mark and Luke. He casts out devils. In casts, the cast part is all three. And the S is Mark and Luke. Out devils is now all three. Yeah, I'll say that period as well. Cast out devils. Through Beelzebub. Or by. So should I have by or through? By is here in Matthew and Mark, so I guess I'll just go with that. Beelzebub. This second mention of Beelzebub is here in Luke. Beelzebub, the chief of the devils. The prince of the devils. So prince is Matthew and Mark, so I'll keep prince. The is all three of the devils. This of the devils is all three. So chief. Can I have the prince and chief of the devils? It says in the next verse in Luke, and others, tempting him, sought of him a sign from heaven. But I think that comes later in Matthew and Mark. Yeah. Master, we would see a sign from you. So it's not just others here in Luke. It's still scribes and Pharisees questioning. It's more descriptive than just others. By Beelzebub, the prince. So yeah, I could do and chief. So should I have prince and chief, or the chief and prince of the devils? I don't think it makes any difference. But since Matthew and Mark come earlier in the order, in the listing, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, and both Matthew and Mark have prince first, or just prince, and Luke comes later, I'll put prince and chief. So I already have the prince and chief. I'll explain where that and comes from. Of the devils. He casts out devils. Yeah, I think that's alright.